Ghostbusters 2016 is an action comedy directed by Paul Feig. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones as a group of 4 women who have to fight a paranormal outbreak that's happening in New York City. Now, over the course of film history, there have been a number of controversial movies. Some of them have been controversial for political reasons. Some of them have been a little bit over the top in their violence. And then you got movies like that, which just all kinds of messed up. So it's probably safe to say that Ghostbusters 2016 can be added to that list. If you've been living under a rock, the movie caused a huge amount of controversy and uproar on the internet. When the first trailer came out, it broke the record as having the most number of dislikes on YouTube. Admittedly, it was a pretty bad trailer, but not for all the reasons people were talking about. It had nothing to do with the female cast or anything. It just looked a little crappy. Like, the jokes weren't that good, the performances looked a bit over the top. There were a lot of reasons why it kind of sucked. But that led to an unprecedented hate campaign online, which I think was extremely undeserved. People began rating the film a 1 out of 10 on IMDb, even though they hadn't seen the film. And then, of course, people were voting it a 10 out of 10 because, well, screw you people who voted it a 1 out of 10. And the whole thing was just a complete mess. So I went into this movie with a completely open mind. I ignored all the controversy that's happened. Look, I even forgot about the original 2 films, which I was a really big fan of. I mean, when the first Ghostbusters came out, I was 11 and I loved it. I wanted to be a Ghostbuster so badly. I had the t-shirt, I had the book, I had the soundtrack, I had everything that I could get my hands on. I loved it. The second movie was okay, but, not great. I could have been one of these people who was very precious about it. I mean, there's all these people online who are like, oh my god, they've raped my childhood, that sort of thing. But I just wanted to take this movie for what it is, a completely new film that had nothing to do with the previous ones. It's a reboot. And I gotta say, it's not that bad. It definitely doesn't deserve a smidgen of the controversy it's causing and the hate that it's getting online, that sort of thing. It was actually a pretty fun, entertaining flick. So let me start with what I really liked about the movie. It was a visual treat. I loved how this movie looked. It was bright and colourful without being a cheesy sort of over-the-top colourful that a certain movie suffered from once upon a time. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Joel Schumacher. And aside from the bright, dazzling visuals, the cinematography was pretty good, but one thing I loved was the 3D. This was one of the best 3D movies I have seen in years. They did this really cool thing with the aspect ratio of the movie. Now, the way it was presented on screen, it actually retained the black bars at the top and bottom, and things were happening outside of the picture. I mean, when they're firing proton beams, that kind of thing, it was coming right out of the screen and using that black space at the top and bottom so effectively. I mean, there were some moments in this movie that audibly made me say, wow, there were some great visuals. I absolutely loved how it looked. So aside from the eye candy, the cast were really good. Now, I've never from day one had a problem with there being a female cast, and they worked really well together. I mean, admittedly, Melissa McCarthy was playing Melissa McCarthy. She seems to kind of play the same character in every movie. That's not a bad thing. Unlike some actors in the past who kind of played the same character, but, the joke wore thin after a little while. Kristen Wiig, who's one of my most favourite comedic actresses working today, she was really good, but unfortunately her character was kind of a straight person, so she didn't really have a lot of room to, do anything too funny. Kate McKinnon, I actually thought was probably the funniest of the bunch. She definitely got the most chuckles out of me, but it was when she was kind of reining back the craziness a little bit. Her character was really kind of a Looney Tune, but there were some scenes where she just went a little over the top, especially with physical performances, that kind of thing. But for me, the funniest parts were when she was just kind of spouting out one-liners, that sort of thing. So yeah, I really dug her performance. And Leslie Jones, now from the trailer, I thought, oh man, she's going to be so irritating, but she wasn't. She was fine. Like, she wasn't great or anything like that, but she was definitely nowhere near as annoying as I thought she was going to be. Aside from the lead cast, the supporting cast was also really good. We had people like Charles Dance and Matthew Walsh and a whole bunch of actors that you'd probably recognize if you saw them. And yeah, everyone did a really good job. But one of my most favorite standouts of the supporting cast was definitely Chris Hemsworth. I really dug what he brought to this film. He was just so likable. I mean, you know, Chris Hemsworth is always likable, but yeah, I dug his character. I mean, we've seen in the trailer he plays the sort of, you know, ditzy male receptionist, and they probably at times took it a little bit too far, but I also appreciated the fact that they gave his character a fairly important role in the film. Like, there's a lot more that what you see in the trailer. And I love the fact that he was able to keep his Australian accent as well. It was one of those things that, I mean, there was no real reason why he had to be Australian, and it was never really sort of referenced in the movie, but yeah, I just kind of thought it was refreshing that he was able to just be his natural self. And aside from all that, it was just an entertaining movie. I mean, it was the kind of thing that it's not going to change the world or anything like that, and I thought it was able to stand on its own. It wasn't trying to be the first movie, or it wasn't trying to be part of the franchise. I mean, this was definitely a reboot, and I felt it actually did a good job of standing on its own as its own movie. So, onto some of the things that I didn't like about the movie. The dialogue in places really could have been better, particularly the job interview where Chris Hemsworth's character Kevin is applying for the job. There was some really cringeworthy dialogue in that, particularly about his cat. I'm not going to spoil the joke or anything, but it just went too long. There were a couple of other moments in the movie where I thought the jokes went too long. Another one of the main criticisms I have was the villain in the movie. He was really weak. And I'm not talking about like physically unable to bench press or anything like that, but just written very two-dimensionally. We didn't care about his whole plot and reason why he's doing what he's doing, that sort of thing. He was just there for the sake of having a nemesis for the Ghostbusters, and he really didn't do anything for me at all. And aside from that, the ending of the movie, which again I'm not going to say too much about, but it was just lazy, you know. I mean, you look at the first movie, like the way they defeated the evil, and there was that whole tense moment about what's going to happen if they cross the streams and all this sort of stuff. There was nothing like that in this movie. It was just a very lazy, ho-hum kind of an ending, and I was very disappointed with that. And another thing which I've got to touch on is the whole feminism aspect of the movie. Now, look, it's not the kind of thing that I really care that much about. This isn't the sort of movie that is going to change people's lives. You know, people aren't going to be turning to Ghostbusters 2016 for life lessons or anything like that. But there were a few things that were kind of amusing to me. One, Melissa McCarthy's character Abby, her EPK reader, was shaped like a female body part. I think you can kind of guess what I'm talking about, you know. It starts with V and rhymes with vagina. And aside from that, every male character in the movie was kind of a schmuck, but you know what? Again, I didn't care because, I mean, for so many years, women in movies have been treated poorly, that sort of thing. So that to me was something I could just kind of look over. But then you get this scene where one of the big ghosts that they've got to fight, well, let's just say the way that they have to defeat him is by aiming their proton beams at his thingy. And I thought that was kind of crossing the line a little bit as far as, like, you know, there's feminist subtext in a movie, and then there's shooting a monster in the dick. But like I said, at the end of the day, I just didn't care. I mean, I'm not going to get online and start spewing hatred about, like, oh my god, the Ghostbusters have vaginas or anything like that. Who cares? And another point that's gaining a little bit of controversy at the moment is the cameos from the main cast of the original movies. Now, I get that a lot of people are saying, you know, it's such a bad thing because they've just relegated them to sort of minor, like they're not playing the characters they did in the originals. They're playing things like a professor and a taxi driver and stuff like that. And I do kind of get where people who are very precious about the original are coming from, but look, The way I look at it is this. Okay, imagine you're a famous director and you've been given the reins for a franchise that was massively huge 30 years ago, and they want to reboot it, so they've given you the franchise, which you love, and you've put your own spin on it, that kind of thing, which everybody hates, but you're like, I don't care, this is how I want to do it. The way I looked at the cameos was that Paul Feig put them in there as a tribute to the original. I don't think he did any disservice by putting them in other roles, that kind of thing. I actually kind of dug the cameos. I didn't mind them at all. To me, it was a nod to the fans. It was almost a way of saying, this is the new Ghostbusters, and we're moving on from the old, and this is the new. So look, overall, I didn't mind the movie. It's nowhere near as bad as the internet is making it out to be, and I had a good time watching it. There was, kind of a lull in the middle, and the ending was a bit weak, but it was a visual treat, and yeah, I'd definitely watch it again. I'd probably add it to my collection maybe once it comes down in price. I probably wouldn't pay full price for it at the start, but yeah, I'd add it to my collection. It was just harmless fun, and I'm going to give Ghostbusters a 6.5 out of 10. And for all those people who are crying foul about the fact that this movie raped their childhood and blah, 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 guess what? This still exists. You can still watch this. It hasn't been erased from history or anything like that. Nobody's forcing you to give up the old version and watch the new one only. Just don't watch it if it offends you that badly. So thanks for checking out my review, and look, if you've been, scared to watch it for whatever reason, give it a go. It's really not that bad. It's just harmless fun. And in the meantime, I'm going to be having a bit of a giveaway on my Facebook page. I'm giving away a double pass to see the movie. That's right. It's going to be open to Australian residents only, and it's going to be on my Facebook page, which the link will be down below in the description. So head on over there and check it out. And in the meantime, leave me some comments. Let me know what you thought of Ghostbusters. Let me know if I'm a feminist or a misogynist or if I've been paid by Sony or whatever. So drop comments either here or on Facebook, because I like to talk about movies and I would love to talk about movies with you. See you next time.
Hey you there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Click subscribe. You see the big word up the top that says subscribe? Well, click on it. Click on it now! Do it! Yeah!